Hey everyone, it's Julie and thank you so much for joining me for this VR to Casper at BoyDiviner and his tag called Tarot Firsts. So his tag was inspired by another tag called Formative Decks by Kasha at Tarot Map and Patrick over at the Living Wheel. And I'm pretty sure I did a VR to that one as well. I will try to link that somewhere. But this tag is a pretty fluid and flexible tag where we just talk about our tarot firsts and whatever I guess comes to mind that really sticks out as being a first in terms of the tarot realm, your tarot practice. So I will of course leave a link to Casper's video as well so that you can check out some of his tarot firsts. Mine are not going to be the same. I'm going with some different ones. But the first tarot first that I will be talking about is one that he's also covered. And that is the very first deck that I feel that I truly learned tarot with. And for those of you who have been with me on this channel, you already know the answer to this. And so I'm sure I'm a broken record, but it is the Llewellyn Tarot, and this is modified, but this is, the first deck where I felt like the imagery was one that I could work with, and that it was complementary and compatible to the more kind of general, comprehensive Tarot 101 resources that I was using. Because the guidebook for this deck is very much devoted to Welsh mythology. So I really actually didn't use the guidebook all that much, but rather more general tarot resources. And I found this deck, even though it isn't an exact kind of RWS clone, it is very much in keeping with the RWS traditional symbology and imagery. And so it was great to work with, and I really fell in love with the art. And as anyone knows, loving the art is a huge component to wanting to work with the deck a lot of times. I mean, not all the time, but when you're first learning, it does help to have a deck that's really pretty to look at and that you actually want to pick up. So that is the Llewellyn. So the next deck that I'm going to talk about is the first tarot deck that I did a serious mod on. And so we're talking not going beyond just edging or trimming off the borders, which the Llewellyn, that was, again, the deck that I first tried trimming the borders off of and edging. But for this particular deck, I decided I was going to color on it, which to me was a really scary notion and yet exciting. And I just felt like this deck was really begging for me to color it. And so I decided to take the risk, and that is the Moon Void Tarot. So this deck is a predominantly black and white deck. Some cards have little bits of red, and I decided to go beyond and use some Sharpies and kind of color in elements that I wanted to in each of the images. And it was just a really, once I overcame the fear and the anxiety of what I was doing, it actually became a really fun way to even further bond with this deck. I already loved it, but coloring it just made me love it even more. I am not typically one to gravitate towards decks with photo manipulation as their art. So this next deck is my very first photo manipulated tarot deck. and that is the Tarot de la Nuit. I never would have imagined that I would go for a deck like this. This heavy photo manipulation. But I think what appealed to me about this deck is that it is very nostalgic. So for instance, this card right here, it just screams Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. So I love that. So it's just nostalgic in a number of ways. It reminds me of, yeah, stories and shows. So like Game of Thrones, and there's Alice in Wonderland somewhere in here, and like The Little Mermaid, and Frozen. And it reminds me of cheesy fantasy covers. I mean, all due respect to this deck, I'm not necessarily calling it cheesy, but you know, like those old school fantasy novel covers back in the day that I would read. Like these are the kinds of costumes and models that I would see on those covers. And so it also reminds me of like the Ren Fest that Matt and I would go to yearly. I mean, because some people seriously dress up and shit like this. I kid you not. I mean, Renfest people take things super seriously, and I love it. I love seeing how people dress up and they just get so into it, and it's just, it's a lot of fun. So I guess this deck, it makes me happy in a very nostalgic way. It brings up a lot of associations and memories that bring a smile to my face. But more importantly, it gives me great readings. I mean, the readings I have with this are always spot on, and I do enjoy working with this deck. Moving away from imagery, we're now going to focus on text, and this next deck is my very first text-based tarot deck, and it is from our very own Veronica Jude. This is the mini version, and you can get a larger size or a different cardstock on Make Playing Cards. I will link that in the description below. This is untitled, but people have been calling it the Veronica Jude deck, the Don't Panic tarot deck, because in small soft letters here you see the phrase Don't Panic. But even though there is imagery, she has included images for a good chunk of these cards, it is a text-based deck that uses quotations, adages, words of advice, just little nuggets of wisdom and prose. And she's really captured the essence of each card with the text that she's chosen. So she does not have the actual traditional titles on the cards, but I do have a walkthrough of this deck where I do identify for you the traditional titles that go with these cards. So I will try to remember to link that as well. I'm just going to go ahead and show my other text-based deck because it's awesome that I have not only one but two. And this is from another lovely tarot tuber in the community, Julianne Victoria. This is her Scrying Poetry Tarot. Once again, I got the mini. You can find this on Game Crafter, I believe, but Julie, she uses, first of all, isn't this beautiful? These backs, I love, but she uses poetry, which as a creative writing major, I thoroughly appreciate. So she uses haiku for the majors, freestyle, free-form poetry for the minors, and then limerick for the courts. And once again, she did an excellent job of conveying the essence and the overall meaning of of each card. So if you want a closer look at this deck, Julie has a walkthrough on her channel. I think I do have a walkthrough on my channel, so I will leave links. Now we're going to talk about a tarot deck that I created. And some of you might be thinking that you're about to see the Inspired Soul Tarot, but actually, the very, very first tarot deck that I ever created was my Majors Only He-Man She-Ra Tarot. This is like handmade, no joke. Using, blank cards and glue and printing out screen grabs. And so here are the backs. And so, yeah, the quality isn't spectacular because, of course, this is an old show and they're just screen captures. But this was a lot of fun, And it was a project that was inspired by Renee over at Meadowlark Mystic, because she handmade her own Majors Only deck as well. And it really just inspired me to do my own with a theme that I really wanted a tarot deck to be based on. And somebody is now actually creating a Masters of the Universe Tarot, you guys. I cannot believe it, but I will leave a link to the Instagram account because this person has already created several images and they look pretty awesome. And I am all about it. As soon as that deck is available for sale, which it better effing be available for sale, I am on that. But anyway, this is just, it's just a lot of fun to do. This is my very first. And now this next one, it's really just an excuse to show off this deck. Another deck that I created in collaboration with Heather Carter and Sarah over at Sunset Bow Tarot, which, by the way, she made this awesome bag for the deck. Yes, it is the Bong Tan Tarot, and this is my very first square tarot deck. Square. Don't you love that? I love the shape. I love everything about this deck. I mean, come on. But yes, it is a lame-ass excuse to show this deck. Absolutely. And I'm going to do it anyway because I've been using the hell out of this deck, and I love it so much. Love it so much. But the reason that we chose this shape was in finding screen grabs, we didn't want to be limited to finding only, portrait oriented or only landscape. So we figured square would be more versatile. And this is, for those of you who might not know, based on the South Korean boy band called BTS. And I am full on army. Unabashedly full on army. The final deck in this VR is the first tarot deck that I ever received in a trade. And that is the Star Tarot. This is the first edition, so it is glossy and the back design is different than the second edition, and I have completely trimmed off the titles and the large ugly borders. And I traded the Tarot of Vampires by Ian McDaniels for this deck. And this was not necessarily a deck that I was actively seeking. I had seen it in other people's walkthroughs, and I was certainly curious about it, and it had gone on and off my wish list. And so I thought, why not? So I'm very pleased with having this in my deck library because I think the imagery is lovely. It's nice and bright and colorful, and it's over the top, which I particularly like. So that is the Star Tarot. If you stayed with me this whole time, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this VR, and I hope you participate on your own social media platform of choice or in the comments down below. So let me know your thoughts, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. And that is, excuse me.